Hey everybody, we'll just let all of our attendees trickle in here for another minute or two. Hey everybody, for those of you just joining, we're going to give another minute or so for everybody to trickle in. All right, let's kick it off and go ahead and get started. Again, hello everybody. Welcome to the webinar today, a Q&A session with Jody Padar, where we're going to be talking about the bridge to the cloud with Wolters, Kluwer, and Botkeeper. For some of you, this is a part 2 event of an ongoing dialogue with Botkeeper and Wolters, Kluwer. A few weeks ago, earlier on in the quarter, we had our original interactive workshop on this concept of the zero-touch tax return and bridge to the cloud. And we had gotten such a great response and such powerful questions that we opted to run a part 2. So for those of you who didn't make it to that first event, who may be seeing some of this content for the first time, not to worry. We'll be doing a recap of some of the original content we covered in that session, and then hopping into some of the more nitty-gritty details with the expert herself today, Jody Padar, and that'll be in the form of questions from you all. As panelists today, we have myself from the Botkeeper team. I'm Jessica King, VP of Marketing. We also have Amy Hall, Product Marketing Manager from Wolters Kluwer, available to field any technical questions as well. And what I'd encourage is, as Jody's walking through her dialogue, please feel free to pop questions into the question panel at the bottom of your screen. We'll be able to serve those up to Jody so she can dive into some of her personal experience in using these two solutions and truly bridging to the cloud. Consider this today your chance to talk with the expert herself. And from that, I'd love to turn it over to Jody Padar, the Radical CPA and VP of Strategy at Botkeeper.
Great, thanks, Jess. I'm really excited to be here today and to just answer some questions about both Botkeeper and CCH Access. So I've been a user of both for a number of years, and how by utilizing both of those technologies, bridge to the cloud, go remote, it's all going to work a lot easier for you than hopefully it has, well, I should say, than it has in the past, just because they're both cloud-born solutions, right? And so a little bit about me, if you don't already know. Jody Padar, the Radical CPA, that's my brand. You see me everywhere, probably on LinkedIn and Accounting Today. I was that practitioner who figured it out and actually utilized all the software in my practice for 13 years, right? I've been in the cloud for 13 years now. And recently I sold my practice and I joined Botkeeper as Vice President of Strategy. But we still use CCH Access Tax. So my partner really does most of the work, but it all works together. And that's really what I want to talk about, because I know a lot of you are moving to the cloud if you haven't already, or trying to figure out how to work in the cloud better, all of the COVID-19 stuff. So I have a deck here. I'm going to go through it fairly quickly because a lot of this stuff was covered in the first session I did, and I want to make sure that we have enough time for Q&A at the end. But so here we go. So basically, we know that we need to get a lot better utilizing cloud technology and utilizing technology better in general, so that we can develop more an advisory role. And we even know that because of the PPP loans and COVID-19 and kind of this push during this craziness of this after tax season, what loan season, whatever we're calling today, which I don't even know what today is, but we know that we have to get our data tighter, and we have to be ready for all this client work and client advisory stuff. And the way to do that is to be in the cloud, and be in the cloud all the time. So we know, and like I said, I'm going to kind of go through these slides pretty quick and get to the important ones, because I know many of you have heard it the first time. Okay, so here we are, just talking about Botkeeper and CCH Access Financial Prep. So the interesting thing is that If you're in the cloud and you're doing all your accounting and your bookkeeping work in the cloud all the time, when you get to a tax return, it's very easy to just go into a tax return, right? Like you don't have to worry about getting the client's data in March, it messing up your tax season. You have the opportunity to just go right to a tax return and prep that return. And I think that's what being a zero touch tax return is about, right? It means that you're talking with your client and or your client's data all year long, whether they're part of a CAS practice or not, even if it's write-up work, and then you're getting all that data all year so that then when you go to tax season, or let's say, I would say even planning season, right, in December, you have the ability to do a tax projection for tax planning. Then after that, you have the ability to go right into a tax return. And when I say right into a tax return, meaning you're going to make a handful of year-end entries and then you're going to push to tax. And with CCH Access financial prep product, you have the ability to do that. And CCH Financial Prep has been around a couple of years now. We were in beta for 2 years ago, so this was actually our second tax season using it. And it allows you to connect to either QuickBooks Online or to Xero and get that information right into your tax return. And you can make a handful of journal entries and then you can go right into CCH Access Tax. And one of the benefits of doing that is that you have kind of a flawless tax season or a seamless tax season. And why is that important? If you think about what happens today in your accounting firm, many of you are probably still dealing with desktop files, and those desktop files, you're getting information, and when I say desktop, meaning QuickBooks desktop, right? So you're getting information from your client via QuickBooks desktop. You're making a bunch of journal entries. You're starting to tie out with retained earnings. And because they, of course, never made the adjusting journal entries from last year, you're doing an analysis on it, and then you're creating a tax return. Well, that file takes you 8 hours to complete in the middle of March. When you go to a zero touch tax return, that same tax return will take you about 20 minutes. So there's your time saving. And for me, the biggest thing, even if you don't charge any more money, if it ends up being a wash from a price perspective, and it's going to be a little bit less from a labor perspective, but even if it ends up being a wash from that perspective, what it does is it takes the busyness out of busy season, right? It takes those crazy 8-hour days or those 8 hours of QuickBooks desktop work, and it pushes it throughout your year so that in March, when you're at your height of the craziness, you have the opportunity to work some of that work outside of tax season. And to me, that's the best part of a zero touch tax return. I mean, there's other things you can add, advisory, there's the opportunity for tax planning, there's all those things around it. But at the end of the day, for me, it's about really reallocating your work so that you don't have a crazy tax season that many of us are used to. So how does that mean? What happens there after I kind of tell you the story of what happens with a regular QB desktop file? Well, we know during tax season, we have two main dilemmas. And those two dilemmas are completing customer work, because we have everything squished into a short period of time, even though that kind of changed this year because of COVID. And also training employees, because if we're hiring new people, we have to train them. And of course, we're training them during tax season, which doesn't make well for training because we're all busy and we're all crazy. So, so what we need to do is we need to think about how we can solve for those two problems. And what I found is these two solutions really help solve for those two problems. And I've actually used them 2 years in a row now. So if I look at the Botkeeper solution, what it does is it allows us to basically connect to a QBO file, right? And it allows you to pull bank feeds and data into well, it's actually machine learning and artificial intelligence, but essentially it's a software program, right? It pulls all that data in and it creates essentially your bookkeeping file monthly, right? And so if you're able to do this every month, instead of trying to squish it all in a tax season, it's going to make for a much smoother tax season. Now, the cool thing about using a solution like Botkeeper is that you're managing your bots, you're not managing the books, right? So it really takes that work out of your firm, lets the bots do the work, and then you have the ability to kind of just work on top of it, make sure that it's correct, and move on. So if you think of it as like having an outsourced bookkeeper, that's a good way of thinking it, except a lot of it is machine learning and artificial intelligence. And they do have a human piece on top of it, but then, you know, you have that ability to check it and see it as well. So so these are kind of the steps it goes through. It pulls the information from the bank statements. It goes through the bot review. The bots learn and the bots get smarter as they go through the data. We use machine learning and artificial intelligence to categorize that data. We make sure that they're correct. We have the ability to verify it, and then we automate those entries. And so that's kind of the cycle of how Botkeeper works, right? And what we know is that when in the past, when we've used cloud technologies that are disjointed, it's hard, right? Because the CPA has to learn how to do bill.com. They have to learn how to do Expensify. They have to learn how to use all these apps. And when you're utilizing the Botkeeper platform, you don't have to do that anymore, right? So the Botkeeper platform pulls all those apps together, and really you learn how to do the platform. And when I say do the platform, it's really not that big of a deal. It's more of opportunity to talk with your bots and to exchange information as it is about learning software or learning a technology. But you really don't learn it. And I always say it's kind of like Uber, right? Like, you know how to press the button and the car comes. Well, it's the same way. You learn, you know, kind of the basics of how to transfer data, and then the Botkeeper the platform works for you. The bots work for you. If we look at what happens in the old days before, we had traditional accounting firms, which I'm sure many of you are. Then there were cloud accounting firms, which some of you probably are too. You're firms who utilize the cloud. You do everything in QuickBooks Online or Xero. You learned all the apps and you figured it all out. Well, then what kind of happened is, and we kind of got shook up. Our industry got shook up a lot because Pilot, Scale Factor, and Bench kind of came into the space, and they came in with over $250 million, right, of funding from VC capital. And what happened is they were able to put together kind of machine learning and artificial intelligence similar to what Botkeeper uses, but they went direct after our clients. And then what's pretty cool about Botkeeper is they have committed to only working with accounting firms. So what they want to be is the accounting technology for accounting firms. So they're going to be the bots are going to work for all of our accounting firms, not just for them, right? So that's very different than Pilot and Scale Factor. The other cool thing about that is it means the more data our bots ingest at Botkeeper, the smarter they get. So they have the ability to learn across the platform, which allows them to get smarter faster, which is pretty cool. And then I put on top here the radical accounting firm, because that would be me, right? Meaning when you're adopting an artificial intelligence driven platform, now that zero touch tax return, a client that you used to spend 8 hours in March on, now essentially takes, I would say, an hour total across the whole year. And then I would say probably a handful of advisory conversations on top of it, because again, you want to make sure that you have that stickiness with your client and you're talking to them. And I think this is important to think about too as we go into this COVID world. High tech does not mean not high touch, right? So just because you're using technology to deliver services does not mean you're not touching your customer all the time. In fact, we touch our customers probably more often than you guys do, because we have everything automated in the background. And then that means that we can have customer phone calls and have those advisory conversations with our clients all year, whether it be around tax planning. Well, now it's all PPP loans, but all those conversations, they're happening all year. So I think that's really important to think about as high touch is, just because you're high tech doesn't mean you're not high touch. So now we're going to take all that bookkeeping data that we've worked on all year long, that the bots have been doing all year long, and it's it's January. So what are we going to do? We're going to connect it to CCH Access Financial Prep. And what does that mean? It means that CCH Financial Prep is going to connect directly so if you were familiar with engagement and you used to map accounts, that's essentially what financial prep does, except you have to map the accounts, but because the mapping is based in machine learning, it maps a lot of it for you. So it auto maps it. You still have to check it, but you map it a little bit, and then it kind of gets smarter as well. You're going to auto group your accounts. So it's going to make sure that everything is, your subcategories and all your sub accounts are going to be mapped to the correct line on the tax return. And then at the very end, all you're going to do is push a button and you're going to port it over to CCH Access Tax. And what it's going to do is it's going to move right into tax, and you're going to have a tax return. You're going to open that tax return, you're going to review it, and you're going to make sure that all your numbers came in correctly, which they do. You're going to check a handful of spots because you're going to want to make sure that your balance sheet is in balance and you have a zero touch tax return. So essentially you have a place to make adjusting journal entries and you have a zero touch tax return. And what it does is it connects directly through QBO, and because Botkeeper uses QBO as your base platform, it has the ability to sync over through. So that's how they actually connect. Anyways, it's pretty cool, and we've used it for 2 years now. So this is not the first, like we went through a second tax season, right? So we were in beta 2 years ago, and then last year we were. And when we went from 2 years ago, we went from 4 full-time equivalents to 2.5 full-time equivalents. So that was the reduction in staff that by automating all of this stuff, it allowed us to do. It allowed us to work faster. The other thing that we use is we use CCH Access Outsource, which is essentially their outsourced tax prep services. So what we do is anything that's any individual tax return that's of significant substantiation, meaning it has a lot, right? It's more than 3 W-2s, right? So any bigger tax returns we send over to outsource, and that allows us to have a speedier tax season, right? Because we can manage our workflow a lot easier because we let things go to outsource, we come back, we review them, and we get them done. So what I think the biggest thing about using CCH Access Outsource is it allows us to kind of manage that workflow. Now, again, COVID-19 kind of was like crazy, right? Because in March, everything closed and we had to figure that out. But what it did was it allows us, when we get hit with the most amount of tax returns, we can send them to outsource and then come back. And we know how much it's going to cost, and then it allows for us to manage our team because we know who our team is and how many returns we're going to do, and that as well. The other thing that I really want to talk about is CCH Access, the platform as a whole. So we've been on the platform for 7 years, and it's really made a difference in how we manage our firm. And I think when we talk about managing a firm, especially in a COVID-19 world, you have to think about workflow. And everyone can say, oh, go cloud. Well, okay, cloud is technology, cloud is not process. And when you think about management and practice management as a whole, the most important thing you need to do is you need to define your process, and you need to utilize the tools that are going to help you manage that workflow. So when all our offices closed in March, we didn't miss a beat because we were already using Workstream and CCH Access Workstream, which means that our tax returns move through our office completely using a routing sheet. It's a digital routing sheet, but a digital routing sheet, and they pop onto our person's board. And then my partner really manages the work and sees where everything is at. And I think this is really important because I think as people move to the cloud, they don't realize that your process has to change around it. And that's what creates the transformation. And that's what creates the friction in moving to the cloud, right? Because it's not just put old technology and old process in the cloud. It's, okay, how are you going to redefine your process and work in the cloud together? So when you're using like the CCH Access suite, what Workstream does is it manages your tax workflow. And it means that you can, and my favorite thing about it is you can watch people's dashboards. And I have a notorious tax return hoarder, and I can see how many returns she's hoarding on her screen at any given time. And it cracks me up because in the old days, you'd have to walk around your office and see how many files she'd have stacked up. And now I can watch her hoarding tendencies right from my dashboard. But and I'm sure many of you have hoarders in your firms, because I think it's a traditional CPA behavior. So they're tax return hoarders. But anyway, so we have CCH Access. We use Workstream, we use Document, which is essentially our file cabinet platform. It makes sure that all our documents are in the right way. It connects directly to our portal, so we can share that information with our tax, with our clients remotely, so they can go to the portal, they can sign things, they can upload documents there. And we use Outsource, and we have used Scan Autoflow in the past. We're not using it too much now because we're sending everything to Outsource these days. So we don't use, obviously CCH Access has a whole bunch of products. We don't use all of them, but we use a good portion of them. And we've been an Access client for 7 years now. So that's kind of my personal story. But I think it's really important to understand that as we move through this new COVID-19 world, and we know we're going back to the office, but we know that it may not be permanent, meaning we may have bouts where we're going to actually come back, or some of us may decide that our firms can be remote half the time. When you're using platforms like Botkeeper and CCH Access together, you have the opportunity to be completely digital and not have to even pay for even a host. So like with us, we use Office 365 for email. So we don't even have a regular server. And we're able to run a complete accounting firm using those two products. Now, again, we don't do audit, and engagement is coming, but I think that's important. And with that, I'm going to pause because I've been talking probably for way too long. And I'm hoping that there are some questions there for that people have in there that they have questions about that are in the, so Jess, do we have any questions?
Yep, and I'd encourage you all listening to feel free to just hammer away. But one of the first questions we have coming in was, I'm familiar with automation to a degree. What other accounting or auditing processes are able to be automated, and how do they show value?
So I think everything needs to be automated today. And I think that every piece of your firm, think about it. I always say, think about it this way. If you had a blank piece of paper and you were to start a brand new firm today, how would you go about every part of your firm and rethinking the process and the technology that you would use around it, right? So I think that's how we really have to rethink practice management today. And I think we have to get really specific around process, because at the end of the day, process is what's going to drive your automation. Or if you're looking at product and you're looking at new tools, make sure to find the tools and then change your process to adapt to their tools, right? Like you don't want to use your old process on top of a new tool, because all that's going to give you is frustration. So I don't know if I answered that question 100%, but I think that we need to be looking at every tool, and we need to be looking at every process in our firm moving into this COVID-19 world, so that we can use automation at its finest. And the other thing I think about it, and I know COVID-19 is like not a good thing, but on the flip side of it, it's really forced us to make our firms change. And we don't have to worry so much about change management anymore, because we're all in the same boat. We all have to figure it out together. You can have someone who's protesting it, but guess what? Like, we're going to have to figure it out, because it doesn't look like COVID-19 is going away anytime soon. So the world of moving to the cloud and how we're going to redefine what our firms look like is here to stay. So we need to embrace it and just be happy that, like, you can't even say, oh, well, your partner's against it, because guess what? Like, everybody has to be on board with moving to the cloud these days.
Great answer. Next question that just came in from, looks like Raymond. Does outsource require a separate 7216 disclosure?
It does. It does. But that's okay. Like, I mean, I think the reality is that people are utilizing outsource, big firms are utilizing outsource. And I think that a lot of people have the notion that when you outsource things that your clients are going to be upset about it. I don't think clients really care. I think it just becomes, you know, we acknowledge that we use outsource to our clients, and they sign the forms and they move on. I think a lot of it is our fear, not necessarily the fear of our customers, and we place that fear on our customers, because if you look at any of the big firms, they're all using outsource. So
Awesome. This question kind of, I think you touched on it lightly in the first question, but what is your stance on automation replacing jobs?
I love it. So you know why I love that question? Because I'm not worried about it replacing my job. I'm worried, I would rather go home early, right? And I think that's the way you have to look at it, right? So how many of us still work 60, 65 hours a week during tax season? How many of us are still working those hours now because tax season never ended this year? So for everyone who's freaked out about automation replacing jobs, and I don't mean to be flippant about it, but I don't think as CPAs we've done very good at work-life balance. And if you can utilize automation to get your work done faster, so A, you can have a clear mind to actually talk to your client about something that's important to them. I think that's huge. B, to be able to go home at 5 or 6 during tax season, that's phenomenal. C, to be able to find the talent who wants to work in a firm where they're not working 65 hours a week, right? So we need to be looking at automation as talent supplements and as helping us do our jobs better. And yeah, we're going to have to upskill ourselves. We're going to have to learn how to be better advisors. We're going to have to learn how to have those conversations so that we're not putting our difficult, and when I say difficult, so we're comfortable having those conversations with our clients. And I mean everybody, not just the partners, right? So that client calls with a question, a staff or senior manager is capable of having that soft conversation with that customer and not afraid of it, and not, oh, I would rather do a bank rec, right? So that's the way we need to be looking at automation. And regardless, if you believe that or not, automation is here, it's coming. So 250 million of VC capital is here. We don't have the luxury of saying, well, I'm not gonna adjust to automation anymore. We have to, and that's who's going to survive in the post-COVID-19 world. But again, I say chaos brings opportunity, so let's jump into it, because you know me, I'm like kind of crazy like that. But let's jump into it. Let's think about it. And the other side of it is when automation, when you're utilizing automation like that, and this is what a lot of people didn't understand about the cloud, and even my firm, is you're a global firm wherever you are in the world. So like we sit in Mount Prospect, Illinois, which is like suburb of Chicago, and we have clients all over the country who we never met. And the reason we did that is because we were utilizing tools like Zoom and you know, social media and all those things. And so if you're afraid that automating things, you're not going to have enough work, or you're going to, the opportunity to go get more work is there, because now you're not limited to doing work in just your little town. You have the whole world. And when you look at the whole world, I would think that there's more than enough accounting work to go around.
Awesome. Awesome. Another really good one. We're not tech experts. What should we be looking for when putting solutions like this together? How do we know what will work well?
So, so you listen to your vendors, and I know everybody hates vendors, right? So like you have to look at this new world as a relationship, right? And you have to look at whoever you're joining with, that they're going to be your partner for a long time, because we know we don't switch accounting softwares. I like every year. I mean, if you move to something like CCH Access Tax from somewhere else, if you weren't already on their non-cloud version, you know that there's a significant learning curve and there's a significant changeover curve, right? Because it's all new. But you have to look at those vendors, meaning Wolters Kluwer and Botkeeper, as your partner, and have them help you make this transition and utilize what they see as best practices, what I'm now calling next practices, to make those transitions, and then make sure that you follow up with them, right? So like, it's not like they're going to install the software and they're going to walk away. WK has a ton of consulting that they do around system implementations and stuff like that. But then it's your job to go to user conference every year. It's your job to be connected. On Botkeeper side, we have a growth team, right? It's your job to stay in contact with these vendors and partner with them, because ultimately technology is going to become part of the solution that we sell. And we need to make sure that our partners are strong, we trust them, and that we want to be with them for a long time, because we know that as accountants, once we buy into it, we're stuck. We don't leave. We know that, right? And they know that too, right? We know that, if you switch tax softwares, chances are you're going to be on that platform 5, 10 plus years, right? Because it's going to become a significant part of your firm, and it's up to us, the vendor, and I would say, but more so on the accounting firm side, to make sure you have a person who is, aware of what's happening, what's getting updated, how things are updated, talking to the product managers, giving them feedback, because they want that. And I think in traditional firms, we haven't necessarily embraced technology, and it's always like, oh, the vendor, they're in the hallway. Well, not in the new world. In the new world, we all need to be sitting around the table together.
Fantastic. Let's see. And again, folks, I just encourage you, there are no stupid questions. Feel free to pop them into the chat. As a reminder, we do have myself from the Botkeeper team if you have any Botkeeper specific questions, as well as Amy from the Wolters Kluwer team if you have any WK questions. And let's see, another one that came in. How much of an impact does something like this have on the client themselves? What do they see?
So that's up to you. So, and I think, again, when we rethink moving to the cloud, we have to think about two sides, right? So we have our front stage, backstage, right? If you think about it, backstage is what our firm does and how our firm does things, right? Backstage. Front stage is what we let our clients see. And I think this is an important thing to think about as you adopt technologies. And in both these technologies, you have the opportunity to figure out what they see and what they don't see. Like in CCH Access, like our clients utilize the portal, right? So they see the portal, they use the portal, but they also, when I say they see and use the portal, our admin also walks them through it if we'll send them a link, but if they need help logging on and doing their first upload, we do a Zoom chat and we help them with it, right? So that's front stage. So that means that you have to think about how your client is going to act with it. You can't just throw technology on them. Some of them you can, and they want a link and they don't even want you to talk to them, and they'll log on at 2 in the morning, right? We have clients who would log on at 2 in the morning, and they're fine and they do it all themselves. But we also have clients who need that extra hand holding, and we hold their hand, right? So Zoom meetings are becoming common now because of COVID-19. So we have someone talk to them in a Zoom meeting and help them upload their documents if they need help, right? So you have to help train those clients to become tech savvy, just as you're learning to be more tech savvy, right? Because some of them are very cloud savvy and some of them aren't. We also, when you're looking at Botkeeper, right? So Botkeeper, it's a white label platform, and you have the opportunity to let your clients in and have access completely to it and talk to the bots directly, or you have the option to not have them even know that they have bots working on their stuff, right? So those are all questions that you should think about as you go through implementing new technologies. Not good, there's no right or wrong answer. It's just how your firm is going to think about how they're going to roll things out to their clients. And I think it depends on your client base too, right? So initially, people who know the history of my firm was as I had taken over my dad's firm, and it's 13 years ago, but a lot of his clients were older, right? And how did we manage those transitions? Well, we had kind of two rows, right? So we had our tech savvy bunch that we knew exactly how to work with them tech savvy wise, because we knew we could. And then we had kind of our legacy base that we worked with a little bit differently. Well, come now, it's 13 years later, we really have almost no legacy left, right? And either A, they've died. It's not because, I mean, they're like 90 years old, whatever, what are you going to do? But either they died and then you get your estate tax return, right? Not a bad thing. Or what happened is even them, the next generation kind of changed over, and either their children are taking care of their financial affairs and stuff like that. And so we've moved them kind of to more tech savvy. But I think it's okay to kind of bifurcate your firm initially and think about how you're going to implement these technologies, but with the intention that after 2 or 3 years that everybody's going to be moved over. And when people say, oh, well, my clients won't adopt that, my clients won't use a portal, my clients don't want to work with me in this way, I'll say, is that your view or is it their view? Because chances are it's your view imposed on them. And the cool thing about COVID-19, again, is that erased it all. Because guess what? In COVID-19, a lot of the elderly people don't want to go out. So it gives them an opportunity to learn how to do something different. And if you say they're not capable of it, how many of you had a telemed appointment over the last 3 months? Because doctors aren't even seeing people. So the elderly who typically go to the doctor's office had to learn how to use Zoom real quick, right? And so, so I think the cool thing about COVID-19 is it forced the culture shift for cloud, and the changes that we're going to have to make to our CPA firms move a lot faster, which that's what we've always been fighting is culture. Culture is your hardest thing to change when you're changing technologies. And now the culture of COVID-19 is forcing the change. So just like we thought nobody would actually social distance, and now like you go out and people are actually standing 6 feet away from you. Now we know there's some people who aren't like paying attention and following the rules, but I'm surprised at how many people do actually follow the rules, because I'm sometimes one of those not so good rule followers. But anyways, like, so I think if you can think of it in that term, like, oh, well, nobody's going to social distance. And then you look out and you see all these people social distancing. It's the exact same thought. Oh, well, nobody's going to adopt a new way of sending us documents or collaborating with us online. And sure enough, you know, they may complain about it the first time. They may get frustrated with it, but you know, after they do it 2 or 3 times, they don't even think about it. And they're like, oh, okay, this is just how it works. This is the new way of doing it.
That's awesome feedback. We just got 2 questions that I think can probably be addressed kind of 2 for 1. So one person said, how does a small firm afford this kind of software? Isn't it too expensive? And then someone else chatted in saying, I pay an intern $13 an hour to do my updating. She handles 10 companies for a much lower fee than something like Botkeeper charges. And so Jody, like, what are your thoughts on that and the position of a smaller firm or somebody that might be using a less expensive solution today?
So I think you have to look at it from a perspective of where you want to be. And when I say that, meaning where do you want to be in the future? If you want to kind of stay and not really grow, then by all means, you know, the solutions, both of these solutions are not cheap. I'm not saying that they are cheap solutions in any means, right? But they're powerful and they're going to allow you to grow. So if your intention is to be a solopreneur and maybe have one contractor, and that's where you want to sit and you're happy with that, and you don't want to automate, you don't want to grow, you don't want to sell and have a bigger firm, whether you're doing the work or managing a team, that's fine. Then these solutions may not be the right solution set for you. If you, on the other hand, are saying, these solutions allow me to go out and sell. They allow me to go out and be kind of that managing partner. They allow me to have a complete back office with no overhead, no benefits, no talent hiring, no talent firing, which, you know, everyone loves to hire people. They all hate to fire them, right? And when I say that, because when you get that $13 an hour person and they really don't do a very good job, it's always painful to fire them as well, because somehow you like them, you get attached to them, whatever. But anyways, like if that's your intention is to grow, then you really need to think about how you're going to automate things so that you have the ability to grow and scale, right? And I think that's how you have to look at it. And when you look at technology, you really have to look at it as a cost of what it is that you sell, and that it actually becomes talent replacement, right? So when you look at that budget and you're saying, oh, I'm going to allocate $40,000 to hire someone new, well, maybe you should be spending that $40,000 on technology, or an outsource solution, instead of spending it on a person. And again, it's not to replace them, it's to supplement them. But I think you have to look at technology as really kind of that above the line cost now. It's part of what we sell so that you can grow faster, you can scale faster, you can, and I think, again, serve your clients better and get higher advisory fees. Because if you're just selling bookkeeping, you're going to be at a fixed fee, right? And that fee is you're kind of at what the market is, right? The value is once you get that gold, and I always say the gold's in the data, right? Once you have that gold, what can you have your client learn from that data? How can they learn something and sell something on top of it, right? And I would say even like a PPP loan, right? Or I won't even say PPP loan, I'll say an SBA loan, right? How many of you were able to go right into SBA loans because you had really clean books, right? Because we had Botkeeper, we were able to go right into SBA loans. Now, granted, the SBA loan took down their site after a couple of weeks, but we were ready to go apply for those loans because we had the data sitting there. And especially in a COVID-19 world where that data is gold, where you can help them with cash flow projections, where you can help them do all this other stuff, that's where the value is. It isn't in the $13 an hour employee, right? It's in getting that work done and then being able to sell higher value stuff on top of it.
Awesome. Another one that just came in. Does Botkeeper platform only work with CCH? We are a Thomson Reuters firm. If no, are there other solutions that you recommend connecting to?
So I would say move to Access. No, if you're a Thomson firm. So right now, Botkeeper platform is based in QBO. So, or Xero. So the Botkeeper platform works with QuickBooks Online and Xero. They don't have a tax component at all. They connect through CCH Access, through CCH's platform, which is called CCH Financial Prep, which actually syncs into QuickBooks Online or Xero.
Perfect. Next one, do your clients push back about outsourcing?
Not really. So we have a handful who made, so if you figure we had like 400 clients that we suggested engagement letters to, we had 2 pushback. So I don't know, 2 out of 400 isn't a big deal. And quite honestly, the people who push back were kind of the people who are push back on everything. So I don't know. I think the value of outsource is worth it. I think the value, not everyone's going to be happy with everything you do, but if it's important to you and it's important to your business, it's important to growing your business, it's important to keeping your team so that they're not working 65 hours a week, which again, I think culture is everything. And if you want to protect your team, I always say protect my employees before I protect my customers, because my employees mean more to me. Then is it worth it to get pushback from 2 or 3 customers out of 400? Absolutely. So you have a conversation. Some of the conversations may go your way, some of them won't. If you lose 2, but you now have the ability to bring on 20 new clients and not hire someone new, where's the ROI, right? So I think a lot of us are afraid of losing clients. Yet I think in reality, those clients that we lose aren't necessarily the clients we want anyways. And I think we have to reevaluate, especially with COVID-19, who are your A clients, your B clients, your C clients, and your D clients. And if you're still working on C and D clients, now's the time to think about how you're gonna exit them gracefully from your firm. And COVID-19 is a pretty good excuse.
Awesome. Next one that came in. Can you achieve remote access by hosting via Citrix or VPN?
So yes, both of these products I believe work using Citrix or VPN, but they will just go a little bit slower because obviously you're logging into something and then logging into something, right? So you might have to, your performance might not be as tight, but both of these work with just a browser, right? So, well, CCH Access has like it's like a widget you download. And it works, so you don't need to be on a VPN or Citrix. We were on Citrix for 2 years when we first started, and that was before Microsoft 360, before Office 365 was connected. Once Office 365 connected to Access, we didn't have to worry about it because we had the ability to have email server and file storage and everything, you know, in Office 365.
Fantastic. Next one. Any tips for automating processes with non-financial data? There's reduced acceptance when we broach the possibility of soft data. So how do we handle non-financial?
So when you say soft data, can you give me an example? Are you talking about like something from like social media or like something that you're connecting to? I guess I'm not sure.
They said third-party tech, which I'm guessing, and then we've gotten this a lot at Botkeeper too, like point of sale, or just non-financial systems, I'm assuming based on the question.
Okay, so at Botkeeper, they connect to a bazillion different apps, and you would just talk to their pre-sales team, and they would tell you if they connect to that app or not. The other thing you have to look at is when you look at dashboards in Botkeeper, you have the ability to take non-financial data and combine it into dashboards. So similar to like a Tableau or something like that, there are dashboards on the Botkeeper platform. And actually, I saw dashboards on a product that CCH is doing that is not in one of the ones that we use, but I actually saw a demo on it. I don't know if I'm supposed to be talking about that or not, but we were, yeah. So I won't say anything else, but I saw some non-financial data in some dashboards on the CCH product as well. But Amy won't tell anyone.
Fantastic. I just got another one come in. Can the bot handle clients who quote unquote think they understand accounting and how to use QuickBooks, which I'm guessing
yes,
have made mistakes or put some dirty data in?
Yes, the bot can understand that because the bot is run on algorithms, which is math. So what people don't understand, and this is what I've learned a lot about, I'm learning more math than I ever wanted to. What machine learning is it's math, and it's really statistics. And so what it does is it creates a bunch of graphs and it finds all the outliers. And if it doesn't make sense to the bot because it didn't fit on the graph the way it thinks the graph should look, it pops it as an exception. And it says, like, hey, dummy, this is an exception. What do you want to do with it? So what happens is instead of reviewing 400 transactions, you're only reviewing, 20, right? Because it's only popped all the exceptions up. Now, the bot team looks at that first before it would even hand it to an accountant in your firm to look at. But I think the other piece of it is when you look at the pricing around bot keeping, basically the option is to tell your client, hey, look, you don't have to do your bookkeeping. All you have to do is your invoicing, or all you have to do is your AP, and we'll do everything else, right? So I think what bot keeping does is it allows you to kind of let your client do what your client does best and do the accounting and the bank recs and all of that, and keep that in-house and share it on the same system and the same platform, so that you kind of limit your client from making mistakes, right? So, so I think there's an opportunity there to really think about what you're going to pull apart and what you want your client to actually touch versus not touch. And Sage used to have a product a long time ago that, and I don't know if it still does this or not because I haven't been in it, where you could turn things on and turn things off. And to me, that's what Botkeeping allows you to do. It allows you to let your client do only what they should be touching. And if they mess a lot of things up consistently, don't let them touch it anymore. Let them just see the reporting on it and have the bots do it in the background, because the bots are faster and the bots don't complain. I mean, like, then you don't have to listen to your client either.
Awesome. And it looks like a piggyback off of that question. So who corrects the client's QB? Is it the bot?
Yeah, so what happens is the bot's it's gonna pull that transaction and it's gonna flag it. And the bot's gonna listen to what you tell it to do. So when you go through onboarding, you give each, so we all know bookkeeping all has specific client nuances. So when you go through your onboarding process, someone on the onboarding team basically makes sure that all those things that you want to do, you do, versus what you want to have the bot do, the bot does, right? So we know every client is different. We know clients want different things. So that comes part of onboarding, because we all know every bookkeeping client. We refer to them as snowflakes, because, you know, every bookkeeping client is a little bit different. So, you know, how do you want the specific bookkeeping client treated? And so that gets documented, and then you have the ability to tell your bots how you want it taken care of.
Fantastic. Another one, this is a security question. I love these. How secure are these systems?
They're way more secure than your system is, I can guarantee it. And the reason being is that, like, WK has like a huge cybersecurity team that like takes care of everything. Botkeeper, we just got through our SOC 2, so we're in good standing. And we have experts, technology experts, who get paid lots and lots of money to make sure that we are secure, versus, you know, the IT guy down the hall, or I would say even us, who think, you know, we're secure, but we're really not, because we just don't have that extra protection of running all our stuff like on Amazon servers and all the like the super cybersecurity stuff. So you know, both systems are extremely secure, and you can talk to their IT people. Well, their technology, they don't like to be called IT. They're technologists about how secure they are. But I think when you think about it, is they have experts and lots more money to make sure things are secure than just us and our little server in the closet somewhere.
Fantastic. It looks like that wraps for, just got another one. What is your process for onboarding new clients and getting access to their bank feeds and so on?
So that's a whole process question, but basically what happens is we walk you through it. We have a deployment team that takes you through it and works with you and your client together to grab credentials and to get everything set up. So I think on both sides, both with CCH Access, their whole platform, as well as the Botkeeper platform, both of them have significant consulting groups or groups that really help you make a transition, right? So it's not like you buy the software and you walk away. Yes, it's expensive software, but on the flip side of it, they're there to support you and they're there to service you. And I think, again, that's a difference, right? That you know, you're getting extra support and to make sure that everything is working correctly and helping you through this transition, because we know the transition to the cloud is not easy. We know that there's going to be bumps along the way, just because it's new, right? There's a lot of new stuff, and that's going to help you. We're going to help you get through it. And I think the last point on that is when you make this digital transformation and you really transform your firm so you're working 100% remote, not just kind of in the cloud, emailing, whatever. When you really change your processes and you really work through that stuff, it becomes a lot easier to help your clients go through that digital transformation. And then that becomes a whole new opportunity for you to help your clients figure out how to do their back offices better, how to digitize their own businesses. And, you know, you can charge for that. And once you've been through it, it's a lot easier to not only sell it, but to help facilitate your clients go through it. And guess what? Clients want to help too. They need help making these digital transformations as well. So with that, I think we might be getting close to time. Because I could talk forever, you know that, guys. Like,
We are. We have about 4 minutes left here, but we actually, oh, we just got another great question from Pierre. Where can I find user testimonials about using the Botkeeper software? Can you guide me?
so I would go to botkeeper.com, right? And actually on botkeeper.com as well. Let's see, I'm not sure where do we, so here's our, I should have had that slide up before. There's our two websites, and feel free if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me at Jody, Jody at botkeeper.com. And I'm happy to talk either about CCH Access and making a conversion or adopting that software, as well as anything about Botkeeper. You can reach out to me directly and I would be happy to help have a one-on-one with you on it. And then I think the last thing that's pretty cool on our Botkeeper website is if you go to CPA Love, that's all my content. I've been doing a bunch of LinkedIn Lives and talking about leadership and what the new normal is going to be like in COVID and going back to the office and what that looks like. And so the idea is if any of you are familiar with me, is you know, it's kind of been one of my things to like kind of change the profession. And with COVID-19, we've kind of it's pushed change, but it's also been really stressful for us. And so it's our way of kind of giving back and talking about, you know, a lot of the things that people weren't talking about. Now some of the content's a little bit older, but mental health and what it was like to be that ear for all your clients when their businesses were failing and how that felt. And there's a lot of really good content there. And now we're morphing into what does it mean to go back to work and what's that going to look like and you know, how to adopt new cloud tech, et cetera. So there's a lot of good content there and it's my content. So if you want to check it out, it's a good place to get it.
Awesome. And we have one more question and then we can wrap because we'll be right at the time. On average, how many clients should we have before going on to Botkeeper?
I think they start around 10, but you know, I think it's subjective. It depends on how big your clients are. But I think probably around 10 is where is a good point.
I'd agree. I'd say that's the sweet spot. Of course, we are happy to work with anybody. Totally depends on where the ROI is going to be for your firm. But great question and great answer, Jody. And with that, it looks like we are able to wrap today. These were some fantastic questions. And given that we're here at the end of the session, I just want to say thank you so much on behalf of both Botkeeper and the Wolters Kluwer teams for joining us today. We hope that you're walking away with some great value to bring back to the table at your firms. We're going to be sending out this recording in follow-up for you to reference back to if you'd like to check out or double click into anything we talked about today. For those of you who would like to learn more about either solution or both, how they work together, we encourage you to check out both the Botkeeper and Wolters Kluwer websites. You're also welcome to chat in and pick up off any questions that went unanswered today if you'd like to continue the conversation. So thank you so much again for joining us this afternoon. Jody, you're amazing. Thank you so much for being an outstanding speaker, and hope you all have a wonderful week.
Awesome. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.